Welcome back, guys, to the Fantasy Birds. Today, we're going to be going over the worst pick in every round of your 2022 fantasy football drafts. We're going to be telling you guys that we should be avoiding in rounds 1 through 5 this upcoming year. But hey, let's get right into the first 5 rounds and our worst picks in each and every one of them. For the first rounds of our 2022 fantasy football drafts, very solid balance of running back and wide receiver in this first round. We haven't seen that in a long time, but the guy that we want to be avoiding this year is going to be Austin Ekeler. This year, you're going to have to draft him around picks 3 through 5, and this is a price that is way too high for us this upcoming year. Last season, Ekeler obviously had the best year of his career, 5 years so far in the NFL, but the first 4 years of his career, he was only able to put up 25 touchdowns through 4 years. Last year, he erupts for 20 touchdowns in 1 year. So last year, he puts up 20 of his 45 total touchdowns, nearly 50% of these touchdowns in 1 year. This is obviously unsustainable production for Ekeler. We're going to see some clear regression here as he was converting touchdowns inside the 5-yard line at an unbelievable clip last year, well above league average. For a smaller running back, this is going to come back down to earth. Not only was he super efficient last year, but he was also seeing more volume than he has his entire career with the Los Angeles Chargers. Last year was the first year that Ekeler actually had 50% of the carries on a per game basis for this Los Angeles backfield. There's a lot to do with Melvin Gordon being in Los Angeles. And last season, the running backs around Ekeler were not very talented. Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson didn't really pan out for this team. But this year, they go ahead and they draft Isaiah Spiller, who clearly is not going to compete for the number 1 role in Los Angeles. But he's going to have some serious volume in this offense. He's going to be around 40 to 50% carry split between these two guys. But Eckler's obviously going to dominate the receptions as he's one of the most talented receiving running backs in the league. So that role is safe for him. But Spiller profiles to be a between the 20s running back, getting those carries and even could vulture those touchdowns inside the goal line, as Ekeler is not one of the bigger, stronger running backs in the NFL. And as an aging running back, they could look to go younger around the goal line to preserve Ekeler's health down the line of his career. In PPR leagues, there's definitely more of a case for Ekeler to go in this top 6 picks of your draft, given the fact that he's going to lead the league in receptions more than likely unless Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy for the majority of the season. But in non-PPR leagues and half PPR leagues, Ekeler's definitely a guy we need to be considering fading until the end of the first round, where he's going to be a great value given the fact that the Chargers could be one of the most dominant offenses that we see this year in the league. But if we're having to draft him in the top 6 picks like he's going currently in drafts, he's going to be one of the worst picks for us given the fact that he's not going to see that carry share that he saw last year, and he's not going to be putting up 20 touchdowns again, as the efficiency numbers are just unsustainable that we saw from him. So that's going to be Austin Ekeler, a guy that we cannot be taking in the first 6 picks of our drafts this upcoming year. In the second round of your drafts, you're going to see maybe a Travis Kelce, some of these other running backs come off the board, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, even some of these wide receivers that didn't go in the first round, CeeDee Lamb could be going. The guy that we do not like taking in the second round is going to be Deebo Samuel at pick number 18 currently. Deebo Samuel, just like Austin Ekeler, is due for some clear regression in the rushing game this upcoming year. Last year, he was converting nearly 13% of his carries into touchdowns. This is well above league average. And we're going to see that come crashing down this upcoming year. He said in the offseason he doesn't want this running back role, and the team has acted like they understood this. They go out and they draft Ty Davis-Price to add to Elijah Mitchell and even Trey Sermon, who looks to be the third running back on this team. So they have 3 solid running backs in this backfield who will share in this committee approach for the 49ers. Now they have named Trey Lance the starting quarterback over Jimmy Garoppolo, and we believe this takes a huge hit to Deebo Samuel's game for a number of reasons. Not only will the passing game be less efficient in San Francisco with Trey Lance, as he's the only start of his career he's been under 200 passing yards, so the volume should not be there in San Francisco, which is going to limit Deebo's upside in the second round. But also, the running game ability of Trey Lance is going to vulture a lot of these touchdowns for these running backs in the backfield for the 49ers. We're going to see more of a Cam Newton type approach like we saw in New England, where he was taking nearly every carry inside the 5-yard line for the Patriots a couple years back. Trey Lance has that size and speed to be that running back at the quarterback position. Very elusive quarterback. We saw him in some Wildcat gadget plays last year in the red zone where he was pretty efficient getting those rushing touchdowns inside the 5. And we believe he's going to do the exact same thing this year for Shanahan's offense. Deebo was punching in a lot of these touchdowns inside the red zone in those gadget plays. With Trey Lance's presence, with Ty Davis-Price, Elijah Mitchell, and even Trey Sermon, there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for Deebo to do it on the ground this upcoming year. He's still going to be a very valuable player in the receiving game, but his receiving upside with Trey Lance at quarterback and his limited passing volume does not warrant a second-round pick this upcoming year. We don't want to be paying for production we saw last year for this upcoming year, and that's exactly what you're going to be doing if you draft Deebo Samuel in the second round. You need to be waiting on him until around the third round, where his talent profile can validate a pick in that range. But Deebo Samuel, with that injury history we saw every year upcoming until last year, we're thankful he was able to stay healthy. These red flags are going to make him our worst pick in the second round of our fantasy football drafts in 2022. We know from past history that A.J. Brown does have some serious injury concerns. We saw him miss a lot of time last year with the injury, but that's not even the main reason that why we think he's a very risky pick in the third round, why we need to totally avoid him in the early third round. It's going to be mainly due to Jalen Hurts and the passing volume that's going to be around in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts last season, actually 9 games under 200 yards passing. He's able to do this while still being a top 5 fantasy quarterback just because how elite he is outside of the pocket, scrambling and picking up those yards on the ground. In a run-dominant offense, they like to lean on their backfield and Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and Jalen Hurts moving the football. It's going to be hard for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert all to get serious targets in this offense. We know Dallas Goedert's a very young, very athletic tight end, very promising looking forward in the league. Devontae Smith, former Heisman winner, had a very good rookie campaign. He looks like he could be on pace for a breakout season. So it's going to be hard for all 3 of these guys to eat in this offense, and A.J. Brown, the most expensive piece in this offense in the third round. Definitely a hard sell for me. I'm not sure if I can get behind A.J. Brown when we aren't even sure if he's going to be the number 1 option or if Devontae Smith's going to elevate his game this upcoming year. So for those reasons there, the third round is just way too much risk for us when there's really no ceiling on his value, considering he's not going to be able to be a top 3 wide receiver in the offense that he's in. So A.J. Brown, definitely a guy that we want to be avoiding in the third round this upcoming season. In this early fourth round, this is where a lot of these running backs start coming off the board. Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, James Conner could slide here. A lot of running back value. Even Travis Etienne in PPR leagues is very attractive here. The guy that we want to be avoiding is going to be Antonio Gibson for the new Washington Commanders. In best ball, he goes much later than this, but in your redraft league, he's hovering around this 4th round draft capital. There's absolutely zero chance that I'm taking him in the 4th round of any drafts that I'm in this year, considering the committee he will see in Washington this upcoming year. The battle for touches in this Washington backfield is going to be on fire the entire season. Buffalo Bills were targeting J.D. McKissic in the offseason very heavily, tried to get him to sign to be that pass-catching running back, ends up coming back to Washington. Washington gives him a pretty sizable contract for his role. So it tells you that he's going to have that third down role, that pass-catching role that's been limiting Gibson's upside the past 2 seasons, why fantasy managers got burned last year when you drafted him at the end of the first round, early in the second round. Last season, he only had 2 games with over a 70% snap share, that is Gibson, in this backfield. We know that it was already a committee coming in last season, and now they draft Brian Robinson, the running back out of Alabama, in the 3rd round. Robinson profiles to be that goal line back. It's going to punch it in. Gibson had some serious injury concerns at the end of last year. He was playing injured throughout most of the season, so they want to get that insurance with this running back. It's going to be a 3-headed approach with Robinson and Gibson sharing the goal line work and between the 20s, and J.D. McKissick's going to have that third down role to himself, we imagine, in the receiving game. With this being said, a Carson Wentz-led team, a Ron Rivera offense that we know is very, very conservative. This is not a running back I want a committee in, especially when I got to pay a 4th round pick on him. So Gibson completely off my board in the 4th round. If you're drafting him, you're signing up for a committee in a bottom 10 offense that's best playmakers are on the outside with Terry McLaurin and new rookie wide receiver Jahan Dotson. So this is definitely a pick I cannot be supporting in the 4th round this upcoming year. In the 5th round of your drafts this upcoming season, you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks coming off the board. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Kyler Murray with that new big contract. He's going to be going around the 5th round. These are guys I definitely love targeting over some of the wide receivers in this range, especially Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. This is going to be our 5th round worst pick in this range. There's no way I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown. Could be not even the number 1 wide receiver on his team in the 5th round on a bad offense with a bad quarterback in Jared Goff. Yes, we know that Amon-Ra St. Brown broke out at the end of last year. The last 5 games of the year, he was absolutely amazing for fantasy owners. Probably won a lot of guys a lot of championships, grabbing him off the waiver wire and putting him in your wide receiver position and feeling very confident at the end of the season. But there's a reason he was so productive in that slot role for this Lions team. One, very, very good game script for the Lions, always trailing, always needing to constantly throw the ball down. Jared Goff, not exactly a deep passer, getting those short intermediate routes to the slot receiver, which St. Brown performed very well in coming out of USC his first season. The last 5 games of the year, this is when DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson both missed a majority of this time. Neither on the field at the same time together in this span, really shutting down the team for the draft pick, ended up with the second overall pick. Even with this breakout, Amon-Ra St. Brown only 2 games with 100 or more yards. This is due to he's getting the targets at the end of the season, but they're very short routes that aren't very valuable. Not a lot of touchdown equity in this Lions offense. With DeAndre Swift and TJ Hockenson on the field together, St. Brown actually had 0 games of 10 plus targets. So you're getting a little bit of a skewed target share when both of these guys are injured. Not only are they coming back fully healthy, Swift and Hockenson that is, they're adding pieces around this offense. DJ Chark gets a $10 million contract. That's no chump change. He's a great wide receiver on the outside. And they signed Jameson Williams, who, yes, is coming in with an ACL injury. Going to miss the first half of the season. But these are 4 pass catchers that you're adding in to the offense that's going to subtract from St. Brown's production that you saw at the end of last season. You're paying this 5th round price just because of the productivity he showed in the last 5 games. You're adding 4 pass catching options to this offense that he's going to have to compete with to put up that same value in the 5th round. There's no way we can see this happening under Jared Goff-led offense. This team is improving, but it's not to the level where it's going to support a slot wide receiver behind a great receiving running back, a great receiving tight end, and 2 solid options on the outside. So St. Brown in the 5th round is definitely off our board completely. Cannot even consider drafting him here. If he slides a little bit later, in PPR, he does get a boost because he's a slot wide receiver. A lot of those targets are going to be very catchable, but in standard and half PPR leagues, you can't even considering him in the first 60 picks of your drafts. That's going to be our first 5 rounds, the worst picks in each and every round. We went from Austin Eckler to Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, Antonio Gibson, and ending it off with Amon-Ra St. Brown. So those are the 5 guys that we have to avoid in the first 5 rounds of our drafts. We thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.